All right, let's get it rolling. Okay, should be in the shot. But shit, dude, appreciate it, Robin, for you coming on here, man.
My pleasure.
You are the most well-suited individual and interview person I've had as an interviewer.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, no problem, man.
You just called me in a working day.
Yeah. No, but yeah, dude, honestly appreciate you even just trying to come out. Yeah, man, if you could just, do a little introduction, how long you've been in Vietnam, what brings you here, where you originally from, all that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from the UK. I lived in London for about 10 years before moving to Vietnam. I fell in love with a woman and traveled around Europe with her.
Oh.
And she, at some point, basically felt the draw of home, and home was Taiwan.
Okay.
And so she went home, and I followed. And on my way, I had a 4-hour layover in Saigon. And there was just something about the place, about the energy, the entrepreneurial spirit. Like growing up, I'd spent a lot of time in Thailand, and this was 20 years ago. And at the time, Bangkok had the same entrepreneurial spirit to it. It had the same hunger, and hunger not in a I'm starving way, but like a hunger for more, a hunger to become, to take one's rightful place. That type of hunger. And Saigon had that exact hunger to it.
Interesting.
Now, sure, 20 years later, that's not to say that Saigon's 20 years behind in terms of development.
Yeah.
But it just is at that point now that Bangkok was there.
Really?
So when things sadly didn't work out with Taiwan, Vietnam became home, basically. Somewhere which I knew I wanted to be part of the story of. So I took my skills, my talents, my career that I'd built up over the past 10 years or so, working with pension funds, institutions, and family offices, and said, hey, I can take these skills and these talents and I can apply these to private clients, so real people, as it were, and in doing so, I can become part of the story of the place. I can add value, where possible.
Yes. Did you not feel like, going back, did you not feel like you do that in Thailand? Or was it kind of just...
I was in Thailand 20 years ago, and Thailand has a very different population to it now, certainly in terms of foreigners, right?
Okay.
And for that matter, the local population. Here it is much more entrepreneurial. The foreigners are much more entrepreneurial. People don't normally, at this point, come here so much to retire yet. Now that's changing.
Yeah.
But right now, people come here to build. They come here to create wealth.
Yeah.
They come here to start a business.
Yeah.
The cost of failure is so low here.
Yeah.
It's why wouldn't you? In many ways. And of course, there are multiplicity reasons why not, but they are outweighed by a very long way.
I actually want to just mention, because I've noticed that experience myself. I think we mentioned before that, here, so we are in more the wealthier, richer area, like District 1, Tao Din area. And so I've noticed that entrepreneurial spirit just speaking to people. Do you feel like that's all over Vietnam? Because I know some other hotspots, like people are talking about, like Da Nang is a really good hotspot for foreigners coming in. Hanoi is as well. I don't know if you've felt like that or been there to kind of...
It is different. Hanoi is the seat of government.
Okay.
Saigon is the seat of business, right?
Yeah.
Da Nang is somewhere more towards, Saigon than Hanoi. But there are still people who are certainly semi-retired who will move to places like Da Nang. And Da Nang is beautiful and serves that purpose very well. But the tech entrepreneur spirit and market in Da Nang is great.
Yeah.
There is more entrepreneurship, but it's the whole country. Really, the whole country has that.
Did you by any chance get to check out other parts of Asia, or did you feel like that 4-hour labor was like dude, this is my spot? Or
No, I've spent lots of time in other parts of Asia.
okay. So what made Vietnam to you personally like drew
It's that
different?
entrepreneurial spirit.
You didn't find that in other, or
not,
was it
not
just
in the same way. So
Oh,
that
okay.
does exist in other places without a shadow of a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think it's in part because of where Vietnam is on its economic cycle, right? So Vietnam has one of the youngest populations in the world. You know, the average age, you know, is like 35.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like 50% of the population are below like 35 roughly. I mean, I know the maths is off there, but you get my point. It's a very, very young population. And at the same time, it is one of the, if not the most rapidly aging population
Yeah, I saw that.
in Asia. So what that means is that the balance between the young and the old is changing the most dramatically. So the shift in birth rates, how fast birth rates change. Not the lowest. Korea has that unfortunate honor. But, you know, it's on its way, changing the fastest in Vietnam. What that means is that Vietnam has this exploding desire to get rich before it gets old.
Yeah, I can see
That's
that.
what it needs to do, right? And so the government backing for entrepreneurial stuff, you know, that type of thing here is huge. Not necessarily in quite the same way that you might see in, I don't know, the Netherlands, for example, or other developed economies in a different way, but it's still here.
Wow.
And it's not something which is quite as in place in the national spirit in other places. Remember, the economy here is 35 years old.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so young.
It's very young, and so as a result, there are all these niches which are just starting to be explored and filled here. Vietnam, while yes, it has a colonial past, at the same time, it doesn't have the same kind of transition of colonial power that places like Singapore or Malaysia do. You know, as an example, right?
Yeah.
You know, or Hong Kong more recently.
Yeah.
So there isn't. It is fresh.
Yeah.
You know, in so many ways.
And you know the beautiful thing as you're saying all this stuff is, I mentioned before, I'm half Vietnamese, American Vietnamese, but I didn't even know all of the things you're talking about in terms of the history, the economic development, like all this information. I think I made this joke to you before, like, so you've been here a little longer in Vietnam than I am because I've been closer to a year, but I've always felt like, dude, you are more Vietnamese than actually a lot of Americans as well have Vietnamese Americans because they've never even come to Vietnam to kind of, you know, explore the country and the roots. But that's the thing, as I'm like meeting more and more people, like they're saying the same thing similar to you in terms of like the entrepreneurial mindset is like, if you want to start something, come here to do it. Looking back, you know, you could have also stayed back home in the UK as well. Did you ever, or was like Asia just like your whole part of your whole plan, or was it just purely out of the love you wanted?
No, it wasn't part of my long-term plan. I mean, I think I reached a point in my career when I realised that I just did not want to really be working for anyone else. So I took my black book and I, you know, largely left the country and so travelled across Europe and so on, armed with a laptop and a phone and where we go, and that was very, very positive. And I still do see Europe in my future, right? Will I always have a connection to Vietnam? Yeah. Will I spend 100% of my time in Vietnam? Definitely not. You know, and that's fine. But Vietnam is a place which is uniquely positioned, I think, to do stuff where people aren't yet doing it.
Okay.
You know.
If you had to think back, let's do a compare and contrast. What was it like back in the UK? I don't even know if you know what it's like right now compared to like Vietnam. And here's the thing: I've talked to different people from the UK. They've all said it's in the. They use a different word, but they all said it's in the gutter. Now I don't know if it's accurate.
So I think the people from the UK have got a very unfortunate national characteristic which started to come in the 1950s, where we basically say that wherever we're from is shit. And
that's the word they were using.
Right, but it's just not true, okay? So the UK is not shit at all. Are there shit things which are happening? Is there a perhaps a break in the social contract between what people pay in taxation and what they receive. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are negative things with that, but it's still one of the world's most developed economies, which has a fantastic level of state support, which you can do pretty much anything. You can set up a new
Yeah.
business literally like that in £15. Like it's wildly easy to do stuff in a great multiplicity of different ways. But the fact that it is one of those more developed economies also means that the level of opportunity is naturally different, right?
Yeah.
As I said, one of the great advantages to Vietnam is that you can come and you can set things up which other people have never done yet, or they haven't done in the way that you want to do them, right? If you're coming to set up a business in Vietnam, I don't suggest that you set up a coffee shop like every other person, but it might be that you set up something different, which is, it doesn't have to be vastly different, just enough to start to make these changes, which have already been maybe not done in exactly the same way, but are more common in other economies.
Even you mentioned before, like if starting something, it's the risk level is low here, and I think the biggest part of starting somewhere, or even retiring, starting a business somewhere, is just generally the cost of living. How much can you essentially survive on whatever money you're coming in, or just have in general? I'm just curious, because I think a lot of people would be interested in terms of the cost of living here in Vietnam. I think that's probably like a big thing. So for you personally,
dude, like how much do you want to spend?
Yeah. So let's just say if you want to live, I don't know, probably like a similar Western lifestyle, like similar like in the UK. You want a nice view, or just, you don't want to live in the gutter where crimes and stuff. But at the same time, you also want to live nicely. So for example, for yourself, like what's
I think the problem with this question, which is always the same, it's the same problem wherever the question's asked.
Yeah.
Is, what is nice to me might not be nice for you. What is safe for me might not be safe for you. Or at least the perception.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I think that one can get a decent apartment which ticks all the boxes, that you can make a home that actually can be rather nice. Finding the same level of luxury here as I would find in some other places can sometimes be difficult. Sometimes.
Really? Okay.
But again, a decent apartment, you can, a decent 2-bed apartment, you can pay $1,000 a month.
Okay.
For that in District 2, as an example.
Yeah.
District 2 being the most popular, both for Viet Kieu, so overseas Vietnamese, and for that matter for non-Vietnamese related people from the West too. Right? So that's where the vast majority of people go there, or District 7. Again, $1,000 will get you a decent apartment with that. $1,000 a month for me is enough to then do food from home, all the general stuff to run the house, if that makes sense. So that's $2,000 a month, and then the rest is however much do you want to spend on going out. And I mean, man, how long is a piece of string, right?
How much would that $2,000, let's say whatever your lifestyle is now, if you wanted something similar back in the UK, would it be similar or slightly more, or?
So I rent out the rooms of my apartment in central London individually, and I charge more than $2,000 for each of those rooms.
Okay. And that's just for a night or for a month?
No. So for a month, I rent out each of the individual rooms for more than $2,000.
Okay.
So it's a nice apartment.
Yeah.
But the point is that I'm able to live life here.
Yeah.
Not just that $2,000 will also cover a number of different restaurants, and like decent restaurants as well if I wanted to, right? But I can live a whole life on that, whereas I could get a room for that in London.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing that I don't think people want to take advantage of. I always heard about it and say it's like lifestyle arbitrage. Whatever you're making in your home country, you can get it much more advantageous if you just move. I mean, it is quite difficult to make that. I would say it's more of like a mental game, mental mind trap beside yourself. Like, I have to live in my home country. I have to do work in my home country. So it's impossible. But at the same time, there's so much missing opportunities if you
Well,
think that way.
Yeah,
You know?
we don't live in the same world that our parents grew up in.
Yeah.
I am perhaps lucky in some ways in that my parents weren't always tied to the UK. Right?
Yeah.
So, but for most people, and even most people today, they feel themselves trapped in that I have to be living in the country that I was born in. Now, there's a fair amount of argument that could be said, well, you're talking from a position of Western privilege where you and I have strong passports and all this type of stuff. And like that is true.
Yeah.
But I can't help where I'm born, man. And,
yeah, exactly.
I'm
but here's even though people might still have the same passport, they still don't even take it. They don't even have the realization of
exactly. They don't take advantage of that, and that doesn't mean that it's without hardship. But similarly, as you said, there is lifestyle arbitrage which can be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So, but what that does come with is it does also come with lifestyle creep, and one needs to be aware of where the money is spent. If you have 2 kids and you are sending them to the top level international schools, that'll run you $100,000 a year.
Here in Vietnam?
Yeah, here in Vietnam.
Interesting. I think a lot of people have this perception like Vietnam, it can be relatively cheap.
Yeah, you can spend as little as you want or as much as you want.
Oh, okay,
do you want your kid to be in class size of 40 where there's no English spoken? Good luck.
Yeah.
Or do you want them to be in a global prestige standard type of international school, in which case, as I say, 2 kids, you're looking at potentially $100,000 a year for that.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. If we're sat in the lobby of a 5-star hotel, you could very easily walk into the restaurant just over there and drop a couple of $1,000s without batting an eyelid.
Yeah.
How much do you want to spend?
Yeah.
At the same time, you can also spend almost nothing. And I know of people who will quite comfortably live on $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
They make sure they eat the local food, they drink the local drinks, they either do apartment shares or house shares, or they just get a 1-bedroom or whatever the case is. Fine. You can do that. If that's the life you want to live, you can do that here.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly easy.
Yeah, it's really the range of or type of person, how you want to spend. Do you have any examples for yourself how lifestyle creep came in your life? If it did, though, I don't know if it...
No, for me, I think part of my problem is that the things that I spend money on are just as expensive here as they are.
Oh.
So, a good cocktail is going to be the same price in Vietnam as it is in London, by and large, right?
Yeah.
I can spend $15 a cocktail here or more, $20 a cocktail here, and spend $20 a cocktail in London.
Okay.
Just as easily.
Yeah. Interesting.
So,
yeah.
But also, I'm a type 1 diabetic, right? So my dietary choices are not easily served by the Vietnamese local food.
Yeah. Okay. How did you feel about, I know we talked about some of the, pricing, a little bit about the culture. How do you feel about the Vietnamese people? Sometimes, people, when they think about coming here, they don't really know how the culture is like or how the people interact with. When how's your experience been dealing with the people? Even like a language barrier.
Yeah, largely positive, but I don't want to say a negative with this at all. But I do think that there are sometimes there's internal misconceptions within Vietnam about how the Vietnamese view themselves, as well as perhaps misconceptions around how other people can view the Vietnamese, right?
Those are 2 conflicts.
Yeah, exactly. So Vietnam is built on a Confucian family system. So often people are giving, they are trained and culturally trained, that is, to think in the mindset often of like the wider population, often. And so frequently they can be incredibly selfless in areas where in the West we can be quite selfish. At the same time, flip it around and we think about traffic, and I am just as guilty of this now that I live in Vietnam. You're talking about me being a bit more Vietnamese than you, like in traffic, bloody hell man, see me drive. But in that, the Vietnamese are the most selfish people I've ever encountered when it comes to driving, right? Because there's no, whatever you're doing, they don't give a damn about that, they're going, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not, the misconception is that people often talk about the Vietnamese being the Vietnamese often talk about themselves as being an incredibly kind people.
Mm-hmm.
And my response to that is, yeah, you're kind. So is most of the rest of the world.
Uh-huh.
It's just around in what areas are you kind and how is that kindness delivered, which is what's different.
Yeah.
Now, culturally, that comes as a kind of a double-edged sword of surprise to people who are new to Vietnam. On one side, they are having people be kind to them in ways that they're not used to people being kind to them. Oh, wow, isn't this lovely?
Yeah.
And then on the other side, they're getting cut up in traffic every 2 seconds. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's always that like duality, because I know what you're talking about, because when I first came here, actually, the Vietnamese people, despite me not knowing the language, and I see the disappointment on their face when they're like, well, I thought I could speak Vietnamese to you, but like, okay, now switch in English. But so they were kind about that. But then I had, I knew somebody who owns some actually in Thailand, he owns like a big franchise of restaurants, and he's opening one in here. So he's getting introduced to the, Vietnamese market for the restaurant, business game in a sense. So he's hiring a lot of Vietnamese people, and he's telling me, working with Vietnamese staff is that they're hardworking. They're, really want to try their best. But on the back end, there'll be times where there'll be a little bit of, miscommunication or a little back talk back and forth. So that time, sometimes it can get a little hectic between the people or just like the staff in a sense. So it's exactly what you mentioned. In certain areas, they're nice. Other areas,
And I can see all my staff are Vietnamese. And I have a lot of time for them, obviously, and for Vietnamese people. At the same time, I know that myself and many people who have not grown up in Vietnam, who are business owners or operators here, have the same frustration with many Vietnamese staff in that, again, because of the Confucian system, there is this deferring to authority often a lack of decision making or creative thinking, and that's just because it's not trained. They don't go through school being trained in that way. Is this something that you can find here? Yeah, but this also means that frequently Viet Q are like the gold dust people that everybody wants to hire because they cover both.
They have like both perspectives sides of it. Yeah, understandable.
And this is a difficult thing, is that the Vietnamese can be very industrious in their own way, but that way often doesn't necessarily match the way that perhaps managerial staff who are from other countries are used to. To give myself as an example, I had to train my staff to stop emailing me after like 6 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Because they would want to keep on working, and they would work slower than what I was used to, but they would work for longer, right? So
would that be a good thing, or because the way you're describing it's like almost?
Well, it's good and bad. It basically means is that in total they get the same amount of work done over the course of a day, and I guess they probably have the same amount of their own time. It's just spread out across various different, in different ways. But I don't want their life to be consumed by working for me. I want them to have a life.
Yeah.
Understand. And I think that's better for them to recharge and all the other stuff. So,
was you starting like a business here? Was it pretty simple, straightforward? Like I know you mentioned in the UK, it's just like that. Was it just coming over here, starting something?
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. If you want to take advantage of the investor visas, or for that matter, even just employing yourself. You and your mates team up and set up a business, employ yourselves, and therefore give yourself visas, right? Then, of course, you have to go through all the hoops for that. But usually, most businesses in Vietnam, actually, they don't even incorporate until they're up and running. Frequently.
Okay.
If it's an idea, they run with the idea until they're getting a bit of money from it, and then we'll think about incorporation, right?
Money first,
Yeah, and that's not the way that you do things in more developed economies, for understandable reasons. But it is something that culturally does seem to be the norm here. So I think that what we can potentially take from that is that there is an ability to kind of give things a go in some ways that perhaps we wouldn't be able to in other jurisdictions. But this does also mean that certainly within professional services, we have to use other jurisdictions for things like professional indemnity insurance for basing a lot of our operations, because otherwise you don't have the same legal system and structure to help protect the client or yourself.
Oh yeah.
So there's a blend with that. Right?
Oh yeah, because what I've noticed is like sometimes the rules, maybe I'm wrong, but obviously you're not Vietnamese, so sometimes certain rules or lack of rules don't have that benefit towards you. Is that how you feel sometimes?
Yeah, I think that perhaps that's part of it. One of the problems with Vietnam, and this is a frustration which is expressed by anybody who's ever done foreign direct investment into Vietnam, or just anybody who's not from Vietnam, just ever has about Vietnam, and that's that there does seem to be a certain level of like weird bureaucracy / rapid rule changes, which ultimately do not help to create a business positive environment or an investment positive environment, because it creates uncertainty.
Yeah. And
if you have uncertainty, how can you drop another 5 million on setting up a new factory or whatever the case is, right? So that can be difficult, but at the same time, due to the fluid nature of the rules, again, it goes back to the cost of failure here is very low. Just set things up and give them a go, and then worry about it afterwards. Yeah, that type of stuff. And
do you feel like you can get unlimited shots in a sense to just based off those type of?
I think
not unlimited, but
leaving Vietnam to one side a little bit, and just looking at things from a global perspective. The reason why most small businesses fail is due to problems with owner finances. So basically, people run out of runway.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the burn in Vietnam can be very low, as we've discussed, around personal finances, if you want it to be. Which does mean that you can have more shots. If you have a limited kind of like pot of money, if that makes sense, you have more shots if you want to. But similarly, because of this, you can very quickly pivot to other things. There's plenty of entrepreneurial people which I know here who pivot very rapidly. Okay, the idea didn't work, change, next one, give that a go. And that's good, I think we also, as foreigners, we are sometimes a bit outside the system, which acts as much in our benefit as it is against us.
Okay.
So banking here is a bit of a ball ache. That's something which is very negative. But at the same time, we don't necessarily get the same amount of scrutiny in some things that others do. That's not to say that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that sometimes government scrutiny just slows things down.
Oh, okay.
And it allows us to operate with a degree of speed that sometimes you don't see.
Do you feel like the government overall has been, I guess it's been kind of like, can be helpful at times, and other times it can be kind of slow in a sense? Because I have heard about when you're starting some type of thing like that in Vietnam, the government can be, depending on the rule change and quick change of motions.
Changes in rules are always frustrating, but I do think that the Vietnamese government at the moment is very forward thinking.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
And that actually, there are great positive changes right now.
Yeah.
So there are big positive changes, and a lot of this is just stuff working through the pipeline.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah, I've heard that from different people starting business here. It's like the government is quick to change things, and they want to be more on the international stage to actually attract more foreign investment. Create a new type of thing. Yeah, I think I mentioned before, it's like Vietnam's going on the up and up in a sense.
Yeah, it is. And as To Lam, I believe, said, Vietnam needs to get rich before it gets old. So that means they need to spend the money.
Yeah, for sure.
As in the government spend the money to encourage that business centricity. But I think that Vietnam is a place of opportunity, and I also think that it gets, in many ways, a bit of a bad rap. That's completely undeserving.
Where do you think it comes from? Is it from like outside or internally? Maybe other foreigner?
No. I think the view of Vietnam from within Asia is different from the view of Vietnam from the West. The view of Vietnam from the West is a bit of a Vietnam, where's that? You know, wasn't there a war there?
Yeah,
that's basically it. Whereas in places like Taiwan, Japan, Korea, I think Vietnam was viewed in many ways as being a bit of a Wild West where people can get away with anything. And that's not true, but it is a place where you can build stuff. You know, the money is pouring into Vietnam from Japanese family offices, from Korean businesses, from Taiwanese businesses, you know, from all over Asia, China as well, obviously, right? And there's a good reason for it. There's a reason why that money is coming here and why people are seeking opportunity within Vietnam. But the reputation, which is perhaps undeserving, is of it being a Wild West, because it's not.
It's more stable now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massively so. Yeah. Cambodia, it might be a different conversation, but Vietnam, you know.
Yeah, that's, like I said, I've only been here for closer to almost a year, and I have seen the stability. But then again, my only perception and viewpoint of, like, for example, the train that opened, Metro just opened this year, that's my view, like, oh, that's how Vietnam has always been. Obviously, I didn't see the past 10, 20 years, but this past year, since I've been here, it's just been like, oh yeah, it's been, honestly, yes, obviously I can see the difference, and I feel the people is different from, back home in Georgia. But at the same time, it's making that move, I didn't really feel like there's a massive difference in my lifestyle.
Well, yeah, and I get that, and I think that you can live at least as good a life here as you would in the States. Like, at least as good a life. It's one of those things where frankly, it baffles me why people who have built wealth in the West aren't choosing to move to places like Vietnam or Thailand and other places and spend their wealth there in countries which are much more receptive to them, in countries whereby they can get... So the most expensive later life care in Vietnam is less than half of the least expensive in the States. Like, that's mind-blowing.
Wow.
And you can get the same level of care without being in a bit of a shithole. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've seen those. So I used to do like a different business. It's like cold calling memory care units. And so there's just elderly people there. And, as I'm, just talking to them, getting information, I found out apparently these memory care units, just for one elderly person, it's around anywhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a month.
Yeah, which is wild.
And it's not even like this amazing, extravagant thing. It's just just push in the house.
Yeah.
And so
again, it's like, so you've made some money in the States.
Yeah.
You can make that money go 5 times as far.
Yeah.
In Southeast Asia, you can do things out here which the cost of doing that in the States is just wildly prohibitive.
Yeah. What do you think is the reasoning behind the thought process? Like, maybe some people like some in the UK, obviously in the States. I've heard also Australians as well. What do you think? And maybe we touched on it a little bit before. Like, I guess one reason is they feel like they have to stay. But do you think there's anything else that makes them...
Why people don't move?
Yeah.
Family is usually the reason.
Biggest one?
Yeah.
Do you think it's like the family's pushing off? Like, you mentioned, Vietnam, that's like, is that during the war or something? Or was it just like...
I think it's just... Often it's... For example, let's imagine that I was 50 and I had parents who are in their 70s or in their 80s. I might be starting to get concerned that they're getting a bit older and a bit more frail, and so therefore, do I really want to be on the other side of the planet? Perhaps not.
Yeah.
And then there's a conversation to say, well, mum and dad, do you want to move to Vietnam? Which then has other pushbacks, which is, well, my life is here, my friends are here, I don't speak the language.
Yeah.
Vietnam is a place, again, where people come to build. It's a place in many ways for younger people right now.
Yeah.
Or at least they're young at heart than it is older people.
Okay.
And that's for the better. If you compare Vietnam and Thailand, a lot of the expat population, certainly the Western expat population within Thailand, are retirees who perhaps are able to live comfortable lives just because they're in Southeast Asia, and they would not have the ability to live a comfortable life in the West. There's a very different population from Western expats, be they Viet Kieu or otherwise, who come to Vietnam, who are hungry to build, who are hungry to do, who are hungry to create.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's a good thing. Yeah, I've seen it myself, and I mentioned before, as I'm talking more and more, I can see the spirit of it all, as I think you're mentioning. By the way, I want to be respectful of your time. If you,
I'm afraid I need to jump off.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cool, for sure. Yeah, dude. First of all, I want to say, Rob, man, even appreciate just coming on, just talking about it. And I think it's always a good thing to hear somebody who, I guess, is building something, like actually trying to build and create something in Vietnam, who isn't like Vietnamese, I guess Vietnamese American, but it's from an outside perspective. So, yeah, man, appreciate it. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, for sure.
Whenever you want to have a chat, we'll be happy to. If not, see you in the gym.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, guys, appreciate the interview. And yeah, this is Robin, and hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cool.